your finance team may require you to produce some type of report that allows them to easily get the summary data from your payroll to be added to your finance software, whether it be QuickBooks, Sage, whatever it might be. Now, by default, we do have a host of reports, so let's just have a look at our June payroll as an example. And you can go to reports, finance summary report, and here you'll see that for the June payroll we have an aggregate of the basic salary, the overtime amount, and basically all of the different transactions that you would have within that salary, including allowances. And there's also a year-to-date figure for balancing up. You can download this to Excel, and if you open that Excel file, give it a second. Yeah, there we go. So if we open this Excel file, we'll see that the transaction and the current amount as well as the year-to-date amounts are in here. And of course, allowances, you have more details because of the different types of allowances, but you do have a total of the different types of allowances, right? However, Techlify HR allows you to take this even further. In your finance software, you might have journal codes and journal names that these values can get ported to directly. So let's say your finance manager is requiring you to send him the values for PAYE, NIS, and net salary that you're adding to your journals. Now, Techlify HR has a feature to do that, and firstly we need to turn it on. So you go to Administration, Features, and you will see that there's a Payroll Accounting Journal feature. So if we turn this on, a couple of things happen. If I go back to Payroll, let's go back to the June fixed rated payroll, you'll now see that we have a finance summary journal report. And secondly, you'll see that we have an accounting journal feature within our settings. So let's just go at the finance summary journal report. And what you'll see is that the report is generated in this format, which generally allows you to export this and import it into your finance software. Now, you can take this again a step further by going to, let me just refresh this page. Yeah, settings, accounting journal, and you can configure your journal. So let's go ahead and add 3 journals for the fields that were requested by the finance manager. So PAYE, let's say the account name is PAYE and the account number is 000. Right, that's PAYE, and we can add an account for NIS as well. Right, so we need NIS employer rather. 2, and then last but not least, net salary. Right, so I've added my journals, the entry type. Again, you can set this to debit or credit based on your accounting requirements, the account number and the account name. If I go back to this payroll now, one thing to keep in mind is for journals, you need to actually recalculate the entire payroll. So I'll sneak to the pay sheet where I can just press recalculate here. I'll recalculate this entire payroll, and let's give it a minute for the calculations to happen. And let me approve this and go back to finance journal. So you'll notice a couple of cool things that happens once we go to the finance journal. Firstly, finance journals does have some processing happening in the back end. So it might take a minute or two for the values to show up here. But there you go. I just refreshed, and now you'll see that the account and the debit amount, because we'd configured them for debit or credit, now shows up. So here you see the account number for net salary, you see the account number for NISER, and the account number for PAYE. And if I export this to CSV, and let's go ahead and open that now, there you go. You can see now that we have all 3 account values, and just a reference is dynamically generated, and the debit amounts and credit amounts would show up here, so you can then send this off to your finance manager. There's also an option to export this on a department level, and this might be useful for cases where you want the PAYE, the NIS, and the net salary, or whatever fields it is that you need, on a department basis. So if we go back to this payroll, we'll see that, hey, we have James here, we have John, Mana, and Pat. And James is finance, John is operations, Mana is engineering. So we have different departments, and Pat is also engineering. And what if we wanted the values on the payroll journal report by department? Techlify HR also supports that. So let's go ahead and add them for net salary here. So let's say we wanted net salary, and we know the account number for net salary is 003, and engineering department code is 01, and then that's where the department option comes in. We can say that, hey, this is net salary for our engineering department. I'll go ahead and save that, and let's also add the net salary for our other 2 departments. And operations is department 2. And I'll also add net salary for finance, and finance is department 3. Good. So we now have journals that are department specific, right? So you have the journals for net salary, it's for the company, but we now have department specific journals. Now what happens once I've added these entries? Let's just recalculate, because every time we make journal changes we need to recalculate. Of course, you would generally just configure your journals one time and then they're used forever. Awesome. So this gets recalculated. Let me approve this payroll, and I'll go back to the finance summary journal report. Again, we might need to give that a minute to reflect the changes. And let's refresh the page and see what happens here if I export this department level report. Now, there we go. If I open this file now, if you remember the previous file, there were only 3 rows. Now in the new file, you will see that we have engineering net salary, we have finance net salary, and we have operations net salary. You will also see that the journals for the account numbers are added in here by department. See 01, 003, that's 003 is net salary, 03, 003, that's a different department net salary, and then 02, 003, again a different department net salary. And you will also notice something else here. You notice that PAYE is separated and NIS employer is also separated. However, because we did not have department specific accounts for NIS employer, as an example, the global account number is used. So NIS employer for engineering department still uses the 00002. NIS employer for finance uses the same account number, and NIS employer for operations once again uses the same account number, which, if you remember, is our global account number that was not department specific. But because we had department specific accounts for net salary, you will see that net salary uses different account numbers that are department specific. However, regardless of the account numbers that are here, the amounts are broken down by department in the department journal report. And this is a pretty cool report that you can use to get department specific totals, even if your payroll includes multiple departments, or you can get branch specific totals even if your payroll includes specific branches, as an example. I hope this feature is useful for you to provide data that your finance team might need for their debit and credit entries.